So thank you all for coming today, and we're going to be talking about job search over 50. Let's get started. What is ageism? So the agenda is this. We're going to talk about what is ageism, how do you overcome it, how do you write your resume, you write the cover letter, preparing for the interview, following up after the interview, and what are some things you can do now while you're looking for a job, but you need to do some other things as well, and 5 key strategies. So what is ageism? Everyone knows that ageism exists, but what does it mean? Usually because you are a seasoned or experienced worker, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They don't think you're good at tech savvy. That is, maybe you're not familiar with the technology you need for your particular field or your particular job. Maybe you're inflexible. You're set in your ways. Maybe you haven't worked with younger people or reported to younger people, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. And bottom line is they think you're going to cost too much. Employers believe they can hire someone younger with less experience and pay them less money. The ageism words, what are the key code words? Energy, technology, creativity, innovation. In the whole job search process, in your cover letters, your resume, your interview, you need to show some experience with each of these areas. So let's start with technology. Basic is the Microsoft Office suite. You must know your Word, your PowerPoint, your Excel, and we suggest that you don't even put that on your resume. They assume you know that stuff. If you're in accounting, it's QuickBooks, and there are other applications. In finance, it's Sage and Tact, SaaS. In marketing, Constant Contact, SurveyMonkey, MailChimp. If you're a teacher, teachers are using online quizzes, Kahoot and Quizlet. And online learning, which years ago was Lotus Notes, and then it became other things, is Canvas, Saba, Discovery, and a whole host of other applications. So it's up to you to stay current in your field with the technology. Don't expect an employer to teach you that technology. You've got to be ready. So writing the resume, things not to do. Don't put in your dates of graduation from high school or college or graduate school or licenses. Use the last 10, at most 15 years of experience, unless it's a very high level C-suite position and they're looking for someone with 20 or more years experience. Most job descriptions, when you read them, are looking for maybe 5 to 10 years of experience, not more. 2 pages maximum. The only rule against this is if you are applying to a job in academia at a college or university as a professor or as a administrator, you can have a longer resume. My resume was like 5 or 6 pages when I worked in academia. Why? Because I included every conference I attended, every presentation I made, anything that was published. Now, your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile is very important. Anyone who receives your resume is going to go to your LinkedIn profile immediately. It has to be professional. Your photograph should be professional. Don't take something off of Facebook. Ask a friend, a family member, or get a photographer to take your photograph. The heading. The heading are the words right after, underneath your name. There are 220 characters. Use them wisely. You can put in several of your key competencies, your key skills. You can put in several job titles. The About section. 2,600 characters. That is the equivalent of 1-page single-space typing. That's a lot of space. Here is where you can develop your accomplishments, tell stories about things that you've done in much more detail than you can on your resume. In the work experience section, again, put in bulleted accomplishments. If you've written your resume first, which I suggest you do, then you can copy and paste those accomplishments into the LinkedIn profile. Request 4 to 5 recommendations from people who know your work. It could be a former manager, a former boss, a former coworker, someone who worked on a team with you, or maybe it was a vendor or a client. What you do is you write to that person or call that person up and ask them for a recommendation. And then you need to go to that person's LinkedIn profile. And on the profile, you request a recommendation and they'll ask you a few questions. How do you know this person? Where did you work? What was your job title, etc. And it's also a good idea to give 3 or 4 recommendations to other people whose work you know well. Now, unadvertised jobs are a hidden job market, and they account for 80% of all the hires, according to Forbes. So what is that? Let's see you see jobs posted online, whether it's on ZipRecruiter or Google or LinkedIn. Here are some of the numbers. Maybe 1,000 people see it. Maybe 200 people begin the application process and 100 people will complete the application. And 75 or more of those resumes will be screened out, either by the applicant tracking system, which is an artificial intelligence system, or by a recruiter or by a human resource manager. Maybe the hiring manager will see 25 resumes, 4 to 6 people might be invited for an interview, and 1 to 3 of them will be invited back for an interview, and 1 person will be offered that job, and 80% of those receiving it will accept it. So look at the statistics. The numbers are against you. Answering ads online is not the best way to get an interview, to get a job. There are only 4 ways to get a job. And the most effective way is networking. 80 to 85% of job seekers will get a job through his or her network. The second, and we're going to get into networking in a bit. The second best way to find a job is writing directly to the hiring manager. That means a person 1 or 2 levels above you at the company, not human resources, unless that's where you are going to work. The third best way is working with a recruiter who specializes in your industry or in your job target, and there are recruiters out there that do specialize in certain industries. The least effective way is to answer ads online, hoping to get an interview. Fewer than 10% of job seekers will get a job this way. So look at that. Again, look at the statistics. Networking is still your best bet. So what's the hidden job market? Jobs that are not posted online. They're not advertised. Why? A hiring manager knows that months in advance, they will need to fill a position. Maybe they're firing someone. Maybe they're giving someone a promotion. Maybe someone's quitting. Maybe they're opening up a new office in a new city. They're merging, they're expanding. That hiring manager in a position to interview you knows well in advance before an ad goes in online or in a newspaper or on an association website. Therefore, your job is to meet as many people in your field as possible so they get to know you and they think of you when they know there is going to be a job opening. That's the hidden job market. Now, why do employers choose other alternatives? A, it's cheaper if they don't want to pay for a service online. They are more likely to get quality applicants from the current employees. Why? Because people already working in a company know the company culture, they know the kind of people they're looking for, and the company respects their opinion when they give a suggestion or recommendation to interview someone. Also, there's an opportunity for the company to build team building through the referrals. In some cultures, like Google or Facebook, there's a lot of pride in the idea of a certain type of worker. So that's why they're really going for that. They really like people internally to suggest people to fill positions. Now, there are 5 steps to your job search, and we're going to go through each of them. Assessment, branding, connecting, differentiating, enhancing. We start with assessment. You need to do an assessment of your skills. Write down your 25 accomplishments. If you can't think of 25, 10, 15, 20 is okay. You're going to pick 7 of those accomplishments, the ones that you are most proud of. And you're going to write a story about each of them. What was the problem you solved or the project you worked on? Who did you work with? What actions did you take? And what were the results? And from those 7 stories, you're going to pick what are the skills that you used in each of those stories. What you want to find out is what are your best skills and what are the ones that you want to use on a job. Some of us are good in things that we really don't want to do on the job. And some of us have things that we like to do and we want to do them on the job. So that's your self-assessment of the skills. Then you also have to think about interests. Maybe you're not interested in technology. Maybe you're not interested in finance. So you don't want to get a job in finance. Maybe you want to get a job in a different field. Why do we spend time on accomplishments? And this is key for your job search. You're going to use an accomplishment in your pitch when you first meet someone and introduce yourself, in your direct email and targeted emails when you write to a hiring manager, in your cover letters if you're responding to an ad or you've heard about a job. The accomplishments are bulleted items in your resume under each job. In the interview, you're going to talk about a few accomplishments that are relevant to what the company needs. And in your follow-up influencing email after the interview. So that's why we spend so much time on accomplishments. What's an accomplishment? Okay, it's a PAR. Some people say STAR, STAR. What's the problem you had to solve? What action or actions did you take? And what was the result? So here are some examples. You can start with an active verb: created, designed, devised, launched, started, initiated, innovated, led, managed. I've got like 50 different verbs you could use to start your accomplishment. Here's some examples, the before and after. Successfully managed partnerships. Okay, but that doesn't give you very much detail. A better way to say the same thing: managed events with over 25 industry associations and achieved a 60% increase in strategic partnerships. It starts with the verb managed. It includes numbers and percents. Another example: developed and published metrics to increase call center productivity. Better way of saying it: developed metrics, posted daily, and within the first month, productivity increased 33% and call length dropped 15%. Again, starts with a verb, includes some percentages and a timeline within the first month. Another example: led team of 10 staff people to design a conference. And this is something that I did when I was at the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Led team of 10 to design and implement the first India oil and gas conference, resulting in 150 attendees. Now, some things don't lend themselves to numbers or percents. Then you have to qualify them. So you can say within the budget, or within the timeline, or in less than the time expected. So you can add qualifying adjectives if you cannot put in numbers, dollars, percents. Now, what if you have a gap in your resume? You were out of work for whatever reason. You can use volunteer work to fill it in. You can say you went back to school for a certificate or a degree or a license, if you did. You can say you raised your children, now they're independent. Medical issues, just leave those out. Most of what people do who are experienced and seasoned will just put in consulting. So you fill that gap by saying, all right, let's say you've been out of work for a year. So you say consulting in marketing or consulting in financial analysis, whatever it is you do. Do's: use 11 or 12-point type. Please don't use 9 or 10-point type. People can't read it. It's too small. It doesn't give you enough space on the page. Use bold. You can bold a few words in each of your bullets to stand out. Show your accomplishments. Once again, using an active verb to start the sentence and using dollars, percents, or numbers if you can. Bullets. You must bullet the items under each of your jobs. Have a summary statement. It could be just a phrase or sentence. You don't need a whole paragraph, again, unless it's a sweet job. It's a very high-level job. Then you can have a paragraph. Use white space. Don't use narrow margins. Use normal margins on your paper. Be specific. Show results. And proofread. Typos are a reason to knock you out. When I interview people, well, when I'm looking for someone and I read their resumes and there's a typo, forget it. I'm not even going to bother interviewing that person. Why? Because that person hasn't taken the time to proofread or to ask a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone else to proofread his or her resume. It's very difficult to read your own writing and find mistakes. Don't. Do not put your address in, no street addresses. Yes, you can put in a city and a state. Don't put in photographs, your photos on the LinkedIn. Now, volunteer work, if it's relevant, you can add it. If you really need to fill in a big gap, you can add it. But ordinarily, we don't put in volunteer work. I worked in not-for-profits, and when I was out of work, I did some pro bono volunteering for the Taproot Foundation. That is a not-for-profit organization that helps other nonprofits with strategic planning and board development. And I worked on 3 different projects for them. I did put that on my resume because I was continuing to look for a job in the nonprofit arena, so that made sense. Don't put in your dates of graduation. Don't put in salary information, and don't put in names of references. Years ago, all our resumes had to have 3 references on them, no longer. That's why you want recommendations on your LinkedIn page. When it comes to references, we'll talk about that. Once you have an interview and they ask you for references, you must contact your references first and tell them that you went on this interview and what they can expect, and that they can expect a call. And then you can give the company that's interviewing you their names, addresses, emails, phone numbers. And again, no more than 10 to 15 years of work experience. I mean, I have way over 30 years of work experience. I don't put that on a resume, depending on the type of job it is. Now, how to combat ageism on the resume, on your LinkedIn profile. You do put in the 10 to 15 years. You don't put in more than that. You don't put in the dates of graduation. Use a younger looking photo of yourself. I don't mean something from 10 or 20 years ago, and when they see you, they'll say, oh, that's not the same person, or that doesn't look like you. But a photograph that makes you look good. And in your LinkedIn profile and your resume and your interview process, illustrate how you have been able to work with younger people, to learn new things, to work with technology. Questions. I'm going to stop here and let's start taking some questions. Any questions about the assessment piece and the resume piece?
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So we had 2 questions in the chat so far. We had one from Derek and then one from Alpa. So Derek, if you wanted to ask your question first, and then Alpa can go after.
Just curious why we didn't think an address was appropriate on a resume.
I'll tell you why. There is prejudice against certain neighborhoods. And so you don't want the person reading it to have any bias one way or the other. You put in your city and state, that's great, but we do leave out addresses for that reason. Good question.
Yeah, my question was, you said if you have a big gap, then consider, including the volunteer work. So what is considered, big? Like what duration?
Well, a year, 2 years, I mean, even 6 months. I mean, it'll be very clear when they see your chronological history. If there's a gap in there, it's going to be obvious. So if it's appropriate, you can fill it in with consulting or volunteering. But that's something we can discuss, privately on the side, but it really depends on what kind of job you're looking for. Is the volunteer work appropriate? That kind of thing.
Thank you.
And then Belle has her hand up. So Belle, you could ask your question.
Hi, thanks. Now I understand that we need to tailor our resumes to the job that we are applying for. If they go on to LinkedIn and look at my resume, it's not the same as the one that I've tailored. Is that an issue?
Okay. The difference is on LinkedIn, you can put everything in there. If you're going for 2 or 3 different jobs, your LinkedIn profile needs to include the accomplishments and the experience that are relevant for those 2 or 3 different jobs. Your resume should be focused and tailored, directed to one job. Your LinkedIn can cover all the bases.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Beth has a question.
Yeah, Beth can ask your question.
Well, I have longer than that of a gap, and I don't want to get into the details and about it. I was doing consulting work up until that point, and I'm now re-entering the marketplace, but at a lower level of career. I did go ahead and join a professional organization and went through the tutorial on what it is that how to get started on what it is that I need to fill in those gaps. But there's no way around that. There really isn't. And the second part is that I have a couple places where I can volunteer, but they're both nonprofits, and I'm not looking for nonprofit work, but I could use some of my skills, like my writing and editing skills. So I don't know if you can answer both of those.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you're not consulting now, you can just say you've been consulting up to this point. Because you don't want to have to get into what else have you been doing, or if it's been medical issues or you're home or whatever, you're taking care of an aging parent. So it's not a horrible thing if you put in consulting, since you have done it in the past, even though you're not doing it recently. And what was the second half of the question again?
If you're volunteering, but you're not, like the two places that I'm volunteering for, in particular, are both nonprofits. I'm not necessarily looking for nonprofit work, but I think it would be to my advantage if I could at least say that when I was working for, or when I'm volunteering for both of them, I'm doing some kind of editing on
Right.
their writing or proposals or.
Yes,
Okay.
excellent. So yes, do put in those two organizations and then put in a bulleted item or two under each one showing that you're editing such and such, you're writing such and such. And those
Okay.
words will pick up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the order of the questions in the chat, we have Kim, Henry, Robin, Dana, Paula, and Lori. So Kim, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, I was just gonna, actually, I'm a recruiter. I work in talent acquisition and leadership. And I actually like it as a recruiter when someone has a huge gap on their resume, if they list some kind of class or LinkedIn free thing that they're doing to show what they're doing in that gap. It's very helpful because a lot of times if you don't address it before they ask you, your resume, when it gets past the ATS, then it has to get past recruiters like me. So if you have a gap and you don't address it, I've seen some really creative stuff, like someone put in, ask me what I did during this period. Someone put continuing education on AI, things like that.
Okay.
You got to do something to grab the recruiter's attention.
Good point, Kim. Thank you for that. Yes, taking a class, there's all sorts of free stuff online. You can always put that in there.
Just to continue on with what we were just talking about, I've got about a 2.5 year gap right now in my resume. I have explained I did go back to school. I've been doing consulting work for quite some time now. But my question is on my resume itself, how do I, phrase that for a heading where normally you've got, company who you worked for and the years? Is it okay? Do I just say career gap, or how do I phrase?
No, you have to say consultant and give the what you're consulting in and the years, or you say going back to school, you say the school, give the school and what you're taking at the school. You don't just put career gap. You never write that on your resume.
Right, but I mean, I've listed the, I've done both of those. So I've listed that under the explanation for the career gap. But how do I,
You put
how
it
do I?
down as though that was your job, okay? Instead of the name of the company, you say consultant. Or instead of the name of the company, you give the name of the school or the online place where you were taking the course.
And then an explanation lists the courses you're taking.
Yes.
So like
good
it's
Right.
Yes.
exactly
yes.
what she's saying, use it as a header, and
It's
then
a
what
header.
you're going to school for goes as what the work experience would be.
So
And
should I say like consultant / school? And then
No.
list?
No,
or
it's two different things. Consulting is
list
one
them
thing and the school that you went to is another thing. They're two separate bulleted items.
All right, but how, like with consulting, I've done consulting since like the year 2000, even when I've been working. So
Well,
I
you don't
s-
have to put all the 25 years in. You can put the last 5 years. I mean, I don't know what how many years you got a gap here, but you can use the last 5 years.
Well, it's about a 2.5 year gap.
Okay,
Yep.
so put that in.
But you would list separately, you would list consulting separately. And the
Yes,
year
absolutely.
all right,
Absolutely.
and then list that on top of, proper chronological, most
That's
recent
right.
going.
That's
Okay,
right.
but not career gap. All right,
No,
because someone who I was working with within, AARP had the heading as, career gap.
no,
But okay, all right, I appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Okay. And then Robin?
Okay, my question is, I'm going back about 15 years, 10, 15. My resume, I have a lot of transferable skills. So if I'm going for public relations and marketing, I have previous professional experience without the date that has the skills. Is that okay?
Yes, you can
Okay.
put your most recent 10 years, and then after that, you say previous professional experience and put the places you worked and your skills and your
With no
accomplishments
years.
with no years.
That's
Yep,
okay. Thank you.
that's right. You got it right, Robin.
And then Dana, just want to ask your question?
Thank you very much, Hannah. Amy, thank you very much for all the tips that you've provided so far. This has already been so beneficial. I just wanted to ask about, in my career, I've worked in a few different industries. I've done different types of work within the industries. I have been asked, hey, it looks like you're not really focused. What is it? Your resume seems to be all over the place. And it's just been a matter of, learning about different parts of, say, the pharmaceutical industry, or, a new opportunity that seemed like a great learning opportunity as well. And I just was wondering how you would recommend I maximize my response, how I phrase it so that it doesn't sound like I'm just sort of, skipping around a field picking wildflowers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. All right, there's two different ways to handle it, and maybe the recruiter will have something to say about this as well. There is another kind of resume called the functional resume, in which you pick 3 or 4 of your top skills, and instead of listing your chronological work history, you list the skills and put accomplishments under each one without saying where you did those things. So that can focus for you or for the reader of the resume. So that's one way to do it. The other way is you keep your resume with the reverse chronological order and the places you work, but you emphasize in each of the bullets the things that you want to do next, or things that were similar, even though you jumped around. So we didn't get to this yet, but you're going to have to figure out what your job target is. And then your resume has to be tailored and directed just to that job target.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Shall we go on, Hannah?
Yeah, we could save the rest for the
Okay.
next question.
All
Yeah.
right. What's the job target? Okay, your job target consists of 3 things: the title, the industry, and the location. And you can't write a resume unless you know these 3 things. Now, maybe you have more than one job target, that's okay, or more than one industry, and then you'll have to tailor your resume to that. What's the primary industry you want to work in? Is it finance? Is it technology? Is it pharma? Is it academia? What position are you looking for? What's the geographic location? So you're going to create your job target map. You're going to select 2 or 3 industries where you want to work, and you're going to make a list of all the companies, all the organizations you'd like to work for. And you're going to write the possible number of positions. And I'm going to show you an example. You're going to get this mailed to you afterwards. This is what a target map looks like. Here's an example. This person is looking for a job in the media industry. They want to be a feature editor. They're willing to work in New York City, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So that's the location. They've put down the locations. How many companies are in media in New York? They put down 10. And how many of those have a feature editor? 4. So 4 times 10, that's possible 40 positions. We're not saying they're open positions, just the number of positions. There are another 5 companies, 2 possible positions, 10. New Jersey, 8 companies with 2 people in each of them, 16. What you're trying to do is guess at, okay, if you look at a newspaper, you can see how many feature editors are there, how many sports editors are there, and you can figure out the number of positions in each. You want to come up with at least 200 possible positions. If you were going for a job in a bank as a bank teller, just an example, and you need 200 positions, well, banks have many locations. So maybe you just need 5 banks, and each one has 10 to 15, 20 locations with 4 or 5 tellers. That gives you your 200 positions. So this is the blank, the industry, the position, the location, the city, the company, the opportunity. And then, then you're going to say, did you connect to the hiring manager or someone else? Do you have a contact number, an email address, and when you've contacted them? So this target map is a way for you to organize your job search. You can track your job search. You can get direction by identifying the companies. It helps to see whether the opportunities are open if you've seen them online or they're hidden. And it allows you to understand what technique are you going to use to get a meeting? Are you going to write an email? Are you going to make a phone call? Are you going to ask someone you know to give you the reference and make the introduction? Then when you do have meetings where you're learning about a company and it's not a job interview, you can share part of this map and say, oh, do you know anybody who works at these companies? Can you introduce me? Or you can ask, do you know of any other companies or organizations that I might add to my map? So that's the target map. Now, networking. Remember we said best way to get a job is networking. So who's in your network? Your family, your friends, your coworkers, former supervisors, your personal accountant, lawyer, hairdresser, gym trainer, dog walker. Everyone you know is in your network. Now, just because they're in your network doesn't mean they know your industry, doesn't mean they know someone, but they all have their own networks. That's the beauty of networking. Everyone has his or her own network of 100 to 250 people. And so you want to contact everyone in your network and tell them you're in a job search and you have a job target with a title and an industry, and can they introduce you to someone? So everybody you know. So there are 5 ways to expand your network. If you've gone through all this and you've contacted everyone you know and nothing's happening, what are you doing to expand your network? Someone already on the call said they joined a professional association. Every job title has an association. If you're a lawyer, it's the American Bar Association. If you're a doctor, it's the American Medical Association. If you're in marketing, it's the American Marketing Association. If you're in human resources, it's SHRM. Everyone, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, they each have their own association. Every association has a website. It has free activities, paid activities, it has membership, it's got all sorts of things, and you can find people who do what you're doing or do what you would like to do and get in touch with them. Alumni Association, whether it's your high school or your college or your technical school or your graduate school. If you go online to the LinkedIn page for your college or high school, it says alumni, and you can search for alumni by year of graduation or years, by city in which they live, by major subject, by company. Alumni are much more likely than strangers to be willing to connect to you, even if you don't know them, even if you didn't go to school with them. Maybe they're 10 years younger than you. Okay, let's say you graduated college, I'm going to say 1970, 1980. You want someone who's 10, 15 years younger than you, you go to the LinkedIn page for your school and search on alumni. A club. Everybody has interests, whether it's tennis or golf or bridge or canasta or a book club. people in your club are sharing your interests. That's great. And once again, it's a group of people whom you've gotten to know. You see them maybe once a week, once a month, and you can ask them for introductions. Volunteering. Again, you're volunteering for a cause, and everyone else who's a volunteer is just as passionate as you are about the cause. And so again, it's a good way to meet new people, develop relationships, have a coffee or the FaceTime or Zoom time, chat with them and see if they can introduce you to people. Civic or religious organizations, the Elks, the Masons, a church, a synagogue, a temple, a mosque, you name it. If you belong to one of these organizations, again, you're seeing people frequently and you can get to know them. Use LinkedIn to find the alumni and to find the professionals. So this is very important. Expand your network. Much of your time during the week should be spent on this. Follow up. When you go to a meeting with someone, follow up with an email. Stay in touch every 4 to 6 weeks. Tell them what you're doing for your job search. Perhaps you might share an article that you read recently from the Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Boston Globe or whatever. How are you going to get meetings? This is the crux. We're not talking about interviews yet, but you want to get meetings with people to get to know them, and so they get to know you. So first, you can get introduced from one of your primary contacts. That's your list of contacts we said to begin with. Then you can also write to a hiring manager, someone who's 1 or 2 levels above your job title. And then you follow up the email with a phone call. So what are you going to say in the direct email? First paragraph, I'm interested in learning more about your company. This is what I do. The paragraph, second paragraph is your pitch. I have X years of experience doing Y, and I'd be happy to provide my skill set for your organization. Third paragraph, list 1 or 2 accomplishments. Again, specific accomplishments related to the job that you're going for at this job. And last paragraph, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss how I might be able to contribute to your organization. If it's a for-profit, you might say, I'd like to discuss how I might contribute to meeting your bottom line. If it's a nonprofit, you might say, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss how to meet your mission. So that's called direct mail when you're going to a specific person. That's a hiring manager. Targeted mail, you've got very specific person. Again, there may not be hiring, but it's a person that you've been introduced to. Why are you writing to them? Again, second paragraph is your pitch. Third paragraph includes 1 or 2 accomplishments. And then your last paragraph, I'd like to meet with you for 15 minutes at a mutually agreeable time, and she'll call you to set up a meeting. And then you have to call. And sometimes you have to call people more than once. And the meeting need not be live if you're in different places. It might be by FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, and that's okay too. One of my sons had 3 interviews for a job that he ultimately got, and all the interviews were on Zoom. He didn't meet anybody till he actually got the job, took the job, and showed up at the office. So now when you call, so you've written the email to say that you'd like to meet this person. Then you have to call. Now, what happens if the person's not there and their administrative assistant answers? Don't leave a message. Why? Because you may have to call several times. And if you leave your name and number, each time you call, they're going to know this guy's a jerk. This woman's an idiot. I'm not going to call this person back. Keep calling. Try before 9 a.m., try after 5 p.m. And if you get an assistant and this person says, well, please leave your name and number, and you say, this is about an email I sent to Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, and they're expecting my call. When do you expect them back in the office? Okay, you want to be able to talk to that person directly and not leave your name and number with the assistant, because you'll never hear back. Let's say you get a meeting. Great. Now, these are called informational meetings, okay, because you don't know if there's a job. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You give them your pitch. I'm so-and-so. I have X years of experience in such and such. I'm interested in working with your company to help you solve your problems. I'd like to learn more about your company. Then you need to ask that person. It's a 3+3. You say 3 things about yourself and you ask 3 questions. What are your challenges that you and your company are facing now? Tell me about your career path. How long have you been at this company? Do you like working at this company? And then you tell them about you, about your accomplishments. Now, at the end of these meetings, again, these are information meetings, you show them the job target list. That's why you've got to create that list. And you can ask the person, do you know anyone who works at any of these companies? Could you introduce me to that person? Can you think of any other companies I should add to my list? Thank them for their time. Now, you still have to follow up again with an email thanking them for their time and repeating. Okay, let's stop here. Questions?
Yes, thank you so much for doing this presentation. What I'm getting a lot, and it happened just the other day, where I get a phone call for pre-screening, and because I'm of a certain age, I have a long history. They're worried I don't want to, I'm applying for the wrong reasons because they know the pay range is probably not what I'd
Okay,
want.
good question. All right.
And so they say to me, are you sure? We want to pre-check. We don't want to waste our time. I convinced them that I was still interested, that there's more to a job than how much you get paid. So I got interviewed this week.
Good for you. That happened to me when the last job before I switched, I was on a contract to be executive director of the New York Society of Security Analysts. That ended fine. I knew I need to find another job. And I stepped down. And the job I was going for was a staff position, director of professional development, which I had done 10, 20 years before that. And the person interviewing me asked me not once, not twice, but 3 times, why do you want to go into a staff position when you have been an executive director? And my answer was this: I am passionate about education, and that's why I want to step into this role to help teachers in the school system learn about financial literacy. And I had to, like you, reiterate, I'm passionate about X, you fill in the blank. And that's why I want to work at this stage of my career. This is what I want to do. All right. And you're right. It's not just about the salary. It's about the nature of the work. And your job is to convince the person interviewing you that, yes, you're willing to step down because of the nature of the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then we'll take the question from Abigail, then Lori, then Beth.
Hi. Just adding to that, it's kind of hard for me to say I am so passionate about doing data work, but that's another story. For creating the list of companies, I'm a business analyst. I was in the defined benefit pensions area, but that's kind of dwindling. I could do that in any industry. How do I narrow it down to this however many companies you mentioned? Because it could be anywhere, you know?
Where, again, it's location too. Where do you want to work? You can have a list of 100 companies. That's okay too. So you have to decide, where do you want to work, size of the company. Maybe you have to do a little research on the companies to see if it's a place where you want to work. There's nothing wrong with having 20 companies or 200 companies on your list.
I mean, what if I don't care? Just pick some, go on like best companies to work for old people.
Well, yeah, that's part of it too. Yeah.
All right.
You may have to do some research beforehand. I always tell people that not-for-profits are less likely to be ageist than for-profits, but there are some for-profits that are open to senior people.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So next we have Lori.
Oh, hi. Yes, thank you.
Sure.
So regarding ageism, do you recommend a person use online solutions such as Delete Me in order to hide a person's age from online search? I've heard this from several friends who work in tech that pay for this monthly service. It costs like $15.
I have not recommended any paid services, not even the paid service for premium LinkedIn. But that's up to you. If your friends highly recommend it, fine.
In other words, a person in HR, let's say, can easily just Google a person's name and see their age. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, if you think that's so and you know it's worked for other people, then go ahead, go for it.
Okay, and then Beth, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yes, I have been doing well, I have two questions. If you don't have, I've been doing my pitches, this is a suggestion by a friend. I've been doing pitches through people that I know through LinkedIn or people that I want to know through LinkedIn. And I've been making them, very, don't want to take up a lot of your time, interested in you because of X. And I wanted to know if they ghost you for whatever reason, do you still continue to send them the updates or whatever? Because there seemed to be, with one person in particular, seemed to be like going in the right direction, and then it's just for whatever reason it just got dropped.
Well, if it's too much trouble, then you drop them too. I mean, the whole point of connecting with people is to have a conversation with them and to stay in touch and have them be willing to stay in touch with you. If they're not willing to stay in touch, then you can take them off your list.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Fernando and then Belle.
Yeah, I have a quick question has to do. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, or specifically on the 200 positions?
What is your question? I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, you mentioned about the 200 positions.
Yes.
How to determine, because in a way you explain, if that I understood correctly, that you select your industry or your role, and then you calculate more or less how many people is in that type of position till you get to the 200.
Well, you can go online to a company and see if it lists, how many people do this, how many people do that. Sometimes you can find that out. Newspapers, you can find that out. It's not always that easy to find out. Smaller companies are not going to have a lot of people who are doing project management, or they're certainly in a C-suite. There's only going to be one CIO, one CFO, things like that. It's not so easy. Sometimes it's a guesswork, but your job. If your job is a high-level job, there won't be a lot of people doing it. If it's a mid-level job, there may be 3 or 4 or 5 people doing it.
So once we get the result, what's the next step to determine either the strategy? That's what I want to understand.
Well, the strategy is, okay, if you want to work for a certain company, then you go back to your network, your people that you know, and ask them, here's my list of companies. Can you introduce me to someone? Do you know anybody who works at these companies? The object is to get a meeting with someone in the company, even if it's not the person at the level you're looking for, could be something at mid-level. That's the idea. Because once you get to meet someone in the company, they can tell you, oh, there's going to be an opening here. Oh, we know of an opening, even if it's not advertised.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Belle.
Hi, my question is, well, first let me say that I have a healthcare experience. I worked in a couple of hospitals, but it's over 20 years ago. And some positions came up that I did not apply for because they asked for someone who has experience working in that environment. So, do you have any recommendations?
Well, do you want to work in that environment again? And what do you want to do?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay. So what I said earlier today is there's 2 things you can do. One is you create a functional resume that highlights the skills that you want to use, and then underneath that puts your experience without the dates. So whatever your key skills are, 3 or 4, you put the skills and then put accomplishments on each of them without dates and without a place. Underneath that, then you list your work experience that might be relevant. And if it's too long ago, don't put the dates in, just say the place you worked and your job title.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, Hannah, can we go on now?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
All right, preparing for interviews, fitness, appearance. You want to look good for life, not just for the interview, but you want to look good. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Have your good outfit on. Even though the world today has become a little more casual with dress, when you go for an interview, you should be dressed appropriately. So what does that mean? A suit, a tie for men, a dress and a scarf, or a suit and a necklace for women. You want to look good. You want your hair to be done, clean shaven, makeup, etc. Smile, show energy. Again, they think people who are older are like, okay, we're not. We have a lot of energy. You have to show your energy, enthusiasm. During the interview, you need to smile. You need to be able to talk about the technology you're familiar with. You need to talk about how you've worked with or for or across another department with younger people. And at some point during this whole interview process, you need to say, I want this job. For example, the people who were told, well, gee, you know, why do you want this job? It's much less money. You know, it's a lower position. You have to say, I want this job because this is what I want to do at this stage in my career, and I have a lot of skills that I can bring to the table. Don't say you're a workaholic. Never say anything negative about a previous boss. Never say anything negative about a previous company or organization. Never say you were terminated for poor performance. And never ask during the first or second interview about vacations or telecommuting or medical benefits. When you get the offer, then they'll give you that information, or you can ask for that information. But don't do it during the interview, because then they think, well, this person wants the job because they want to know how many weeks vacation they're going to get. You don't want to leave that impression. All right. How do you combat ageism during the interview? Show that you can learn new things. Maybe you're taking a course online or at a local high school or community college. Show that you're familiar and comfortable with technology. Show that you've worked with or reported to people younger than you, millennials, Gen Xers, Gen Ys, Gen Zs. And again, emphasize that you are more interested in the roles and the responsibilities of the job than in the salary. Also, you need to show that you bring more to the table than someone younger than you. Judgment, ability to handle crises, thoughtfulness. There are some things that someone who's 20, 30 years younger than you doesn't have that you have. Practice. Maybe it's been some time since you've had an interview. Maybe you're facing someone who's interviewing you, the recruiter or the hiring manager, who's half your age. Practice answering questions. And be ready for questions like, well, how long do you plan to work? Or do you believe you're overqualified? Don't be defensive, give a direct and honest answer. Make sure you continue to discuss your qualifications and what makes you a good fit for the job. After the interview, follow up. First paragraph, say, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me about the position of X. Paragraph 2, as I mentioned, my skills are in, and you repeat the key skills they're looking for. Paragraph 3, a couple of my accomplishments that are relevant. Again, this is something you should have put in your resume and you should have talked about during the interview, and you are reiterating these 1 or 2 accomplishments in your letter. Email. Say something you've learned about the company. I learned that your company does X, or I learned that your organization does X. And then thank you so much for taking the time. I look forward to the next steps in the process. Okay, so when you have a meeting, what's called an informational meeting, research meeting, you keep in touch, tell these people what's going on every 4 to 6 weeks, keep relating, keep building your network, keep emailing, keep meeting. Because these are the people who, working in a company, will find out the information. Now, salary issues. Okay. Do not talk about salary, even if they ask you, until you get the offer. So this is what you say. The first time someone asks you about, well, how much money do you want? Or what's your salary range? You say, let's table that discussion. I know you will be fair. Second time they ask you, well, so what's your salary range? And you say, I am more interested in the roles and responsibilities than in the salary. Then the third time they ask you, and I can tell you, they're going to keep asking you. The third time you say, I have done my research and the market value for this position is, and you give a range. Now, where are you going to find this Vault.com, salary.com, Google, you can find ranges for certain job titles. When you give the range, the low end of the number you give should be a number you can accept. So let's say online it says the range is 60 to 100. Well, you want 80. So you say the range is 80 to 100. Or let's say online the range is 80 to 130, but you want 100. So you say 100 to 130. If you give a range, the low number you give must be a number you can accept, because once they hear that number, they'll say, oh, okay, that's what he or she will accept. You might be able to boost the initial salary that they give you, that they offer you, by giving examples of additional skills and accomplishments that you bring to the table. If you can expand the job beyond the original job description, you might be able to raise the salary, because if you're bringing in more skills than they're expecting and they need those skills, you might be able to raise the salary. So what can you do now? Tell a good story. Practice in front of the mirror, practice with friends. You need to feel comfortable and confident talking about yourself and your accomplishments. Learn a new skill online, at a local high school, community college, take a course, write a blog, find a part-time job, start a consulting business, do some volunteering. So these are all the things you can do while you are looking for your job. So be prepared. We're all living longer. We're working longer. I have friends who were teachers for the New York City school system, and they were able to retire at 55. People are not retiring at 55 anymore. We're working till we're 60, till we're 70, till we're 75. So be prepared. You may have to take a cut in salary. You may have to do a job that's lower than what you would like to get or what you were used to doing. You might have to step into a staff role instead of a managerial role, or you might have to take an interim position. There's an organization, well, it's a recruiting firm called Professionals for Nonprofits, and they get people into positions in not-for-profits, and they put people in interim positions. And while I was looking for a full-time permanent job, I was an interim executive director for Financial Women's Association. I was an interim director for the Universalist Church in Manhattan. Anyway, so those are possibilities. Again, what are the 5 ways to deal with ageism? Show energy, show technical expertise, avoid the salary discussion until you get the offer, show your passion, and we told you what not to do. Okay, more questions.
Great, thank you, Amy. So we have questions right now from Peggy, Kim, and Tom. And Linda, I saw you asked about when to ask for salary, but I think that was answered, so.
Yeah, yes, it
So we'll
was.
start with-
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for this. My main question is, a couple times you talked about illustrating how you've worked with younger people. Like, could you just give me some verbiage about, like, how would you work that in? Like, oh, would you just say my supervisor was, a millennial? Like, would it be that explicit, or?
Well, yeah, you can say that in the interview, certainly.
Okay.
And in your resume, if you wanted to say that, you can say reported to a manager, one of a team of 5 people who reported to a millennial manager. You could say that. Okay,
On your
because usually
resume.
we don't, or you can say, if they worked for you, I led a team of millennials, Gen Xers. So some way you can put it into the resume, and certainly you bring it up at the interview.
Okay, thank you. And just one other quick thing. You just mentioned Professionals for Nonprofit, so I could Google that organization and find it.
Yes,
That's right.
PNP, as I said, it is an outplacement company, a recruiter that just deals with not-for-profit organizations.
Okay, did you just say an acronym name?
PNP,
Thank you so
Professionals
much.
for Nonprofits. You're welcome. Yeah,
Thank
they're a
you.
very good organization. They got me 2 jobs. Interim. I mean, they weren't permanent, but still, it kept me going for a while.
Okay, so Peggy said her mic is working now. So Peggy, if you'd like to ask your question.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yep.
I've been in, I have 5 suits in my closet. So, but my question is, sometimes where the areas, the company's a little bit more blue collar, because I have transferable skills. I'm a creative project manager. So I go into different companies. they almost look at you like you're crazy because you're overdressed. Is
Well,
it always just wear a suit? Can you do
no.
business corporate?
It depends. Since you know the culture of those kinds of companies, then you dress appropriately for that company culture.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to make sure my instincts were right.
Yeah, I mean, in tech, guys come in just a shirt and khakis, that's it, and that's okay.
Thank you. And then Tom.
Yes. I interviewed with a company. The interview seemed to go very well. Subsequently, they wrote me and said they really liked me, but they picked somebody else. And then the job reappeared. And the question is, should I reapply and how should I reapply?
I would write directly to the person who interviewed you, the person who would be your boss. Write directly to that person and say, you may recall I applied for this before. I'm still extremely interested. I would like to set up a time for an interview. Absolutely, go for it. That happens here. My son went for a job at an organization, at a company, and he wasn't picked for that job. They gave it to someone else, but he was picked for another job. 2 months later, that person for that first job left, or they didn't like her, or she left, and he got that job. Anyway, so don't be afraid of applying again, but write directly to that person.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now we have Beth.
Yes, I was going to say half the time you don't even get past the anonymous, faceless pre-screen. So if you have any tips on how to do that, I never know where to look in the camera. I don't know, sometimes they'll even have pre-recorded questions. So if you have any tips on that.
Well, again, you've got to be prepared to answer the questions, but again, it's all through the networking and writing directly to the person who's going to interview you. And even if you get through them, yes, they may do the pre-screening by video or on Zoom. So that's it. You've got to be able to answer the questions. As I said, you should be spending more of your time on the networking and on these information meetings with people who can get you into a company or to introduce you to a hiring manager.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So next we have Dawn and then Raymond.
Hi, and thank you for having us, having this. I really do appreciate it. And forgive me because I'm outdoors. But I wanted to know, earlier we were talking about the resumes, and I'm a recent college grad for the second time. And I did a lot of volunteer work at the college, and I haven't worked for about 3 years now, but I have volunteered for 11 years with United Way. How can I really incorporate some of that volunteer work into the resume? I did my resume, and right now I'm actually studying RBT. So is it wise to actually put some of that volunteer work from the college into my resume, since I have kind of a big gap in my resume with employment? Because my last employer, I really didn't leave on good terms.
All right. So first of all, is the volunteer work that you're doing relevant to the job that you're going for?
Yes, it had to do with human services.
Okay, well, then put in the name of the college and put in your job title. You were a volunteer, but did you have a job title there at the college as a volunteer or not?
It had to do with the relief for people who were going through grief because of a loss of somebody due to suicide loss, things of that nature. But now I'll be doing work with children of autistics.
Well, you need to put that in there. You need to put the name of the college, and there were 2 things you did, seems to me. I'm hearing grief counselor and working with autistic children. So you got to put that in there for however many years, for 4 or 5 years, and put in some bulleted items of the kinds of things that you did.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Dawn.
And then Raymond, if you'd like to ask your question.
Oh, yes. So this is about age and possibly bringing it up early on in the interview with the idea that when the interviewer sees your gray hair and all that stuff, they're probably not even listening. So I would say something to deflect their concern right off the bat. So what do you think about that strategy?
I wouldn't say anything. They see you, they obviously, they know, they've looked at your LinkedIn profile. They know you have gray hair. Listen, my kid, one of my sons is 42. He's already got plenty of gray hair. He's only 42. Okay. So you have gray hair, you could be 40, 50, 60, 70, who knows? I wouldn't say anything. I would concentrate on telling them about my accomplishments and what I can do for them. And that's how you want to wow them. Don't even mention it.
I really want to thank Amy so much for sharing all this wonderful information about job seeking for over 50. This has been so tremendous, and all the comments have been very positive as well. I also want to thank the Jewish Foundation of Metro West and Project M for generously funding our Job Seekers webinar. Thank you for everyone who attended our Job Seekers webinar today, and we will definitely see you next time. We will be staying on for a little bit just so everyone can network and just spend some time to get to know each other. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. These classes are always very beneficial.